To understand why exam authorities like civil service commissions, medical boards, or university entrance committees reject traditional intelligence tests, we have to look at the deep structural mismatch between what an IQ test measures and what a high-stakes selection system actually requires when selection scales to hundreds of thousands or millions of applicants. Relying on pure intelligence testing creates severe legal, psychometric, and operational crises. 1. The psychometric mismatch. Criterion validity versus content validity. In psychometrics, the science of psychological measurement, tests must prove they measure the right thing for the right job. Exam authorities care about two specific types of validity that IQ tests fail to satisfy in a selection context. Content validity. This requires the exam to reflect the actual domain of study or work. A government administrative officer must interpret constitutional law, draft policy briefs, and manage public budgets. An IQ test measuring fluid intelligence like rotating 3D blocks or completing number matrices lacks content validity for that role. It cannot prove a candidate knows how a government department functions. Criterion-related validity. While IQ is a decent predictor of general job performance, it plateaus quickly in specialized fields. Once an applicant passes a baseline cognitive threshold, their success is dictated by domain-specific expertise. A brilliant mathematical mind with zero knowledge of public administration will fail as a bureaucrat, making the IQ score a poor predictor of actual job performance. 2. Legal disasters, unintentional discrimination, and disparate impact. Government bodies operate under strict constitutional and labor laws requiring hiring practices to be fair and non-discriminatory. Traditional intelligence tests are a legal minefield for public sector authorities. Cultural and linguistic loading. Many subtests within standard IQ batteries like vocabulary, verbal analogies, or general information heavily reflect the cultural capital of the majority or affluent classes. The threat of litigation. In many jurisdictions, if a selection test systematically passes one demographic group at a significantly higher rate than another, it creates what legal frameworks call disparate impact. If a government authority uses a test that creates this gap, they must legally prove the test is an absolute business necessity. Because abstract IQ puzzles cannot be tightly linked to specific daily job duties, authorities routinely lose these lawsuits. Standardized subject matter exams are far easier to legally defend. 3. Operational vulnerability. The scale and security nightmare. National entrance and government exams require massive logistical operations. The nature of intelligence testing makes it uniquely vulnerable to security breaches at this scale. The pattern memorization crisis. Subject matter exams like history, engineering, or law can have near-infinite question variance because human knowledge is vast. Fluid intelligence tests, however, rely on a limited set of logical rules, for example, matrix transformations, spatial rotations, logical deductions. Leakage disasters. If an abstract logic test leaks online days before an exam, candidates can memorize the underlying geometric pattern or logical trick in seconds. In contrast, if a medical entrance exam leaks, a candidate still has to understand massive volumes of biology and chemistry to pass a backup test paper. IQ tests lack the buffer wealth of information needed to create thousands of unique, secure exam variations year after year. 4. The distorting power of commercial test prep. Intelligence tests are designed based on the assumption that they measure a stable, underlying trait, factor or general intelligence that shouldn't change drastically with a few weeks of cramming. However, the commercial test prep industry has completely broken this assumption. Candidates' baseline IQ, commercial coaching, pattern memorization, artificially inflated score. When billions of dollars are poured into exam coaching, prep centers train candidates to treat IQ tests like a video game, learning the specific mechanics, shortcuts, and visual triggers of abstract puzzles. When candidates can artificially spike their scores through rote coaching, the test ceases to measure innate intelligence. Instead, it becomes a measure of who could afford the best coaching class, defeating the entire purpose of the exam. 5. The can do versus will do problem. Psychologists split human performance into two categories: maximal performance, what can you do when pushing your brain to the limit, and typical performance, how do you actually behave on a rainy Tuesday when nobody is watching. An intelligence test only measures maximal cognitive performance over a brief, highly focused 2-hour window. It completely fails to assess typical performance traits, such as conscientiousness, emotional stability, bureaucratic integrity, grit, and the ability to collaborate under political pressure. Government authorities know that a moderately intelligent individual who is highly disciplined, ethical, and detail-oriented will vastly outperform a hyper-intelligent individual who lacks focus or emotional control. Because IQ tests cannot measure character or specialized aptitude, they are insufficient as standalone gatekeepers.